You ever stare at a woman you trusted with everything in you and ask yourself how she managed to betray you like it was nothing? Men like you assume that loyalty is a shield. You believe that consistency earns commitment. You think being a good man guarantees a good outcome. But there are four psychological reasons women cheat on good men, and none of them say a thing about your value. These reasons start simmering long before anything obvious happens. Tiny emotional shifts, silent disconnects, patterns nobody ever taught you to recognize. And if you don't learn these triggers, you'll end up reliving the same heartbreak with someone new who smiles just as softly. So let's stop pretending her betrayal was some unpredictable accident. It wasn't. There are reasons, deep, uncomfortable reasons. She broke the heart of a man who would have carried entire worlds for her. What's wild is that it's always the men who try with everything they have who end up suffering the deepest cuts. The men who show up, the men who stay calm, the men who communicate honestly, avoid unnecessary drama, and give love in the way they wish to receive it. The men who assume doing everything right should naturally result in loyalty. And yet, those are the men who get blindsided the hardest. Not because they're weak, not because they lack value, but because they didn't fully understand the emotional role they were playing in her world. There's a certain kind of woman who gravitates toward a good man for one primary reason. He feels safe, not electrifying, not unpredictable, not thrilling, safe. And safety can be a gift. With the right woman, safety becomes the soil where real love grows. But with the wrong woman, safety becomes more like a shelter she hides in when her life feels too heavy, too messy, too chaotic. A temporary refuge, not a home she plans to build with you. She uses the calm you offer as a place to recover from storms she created elsewhere. This is the tragic paradox most good men never see coming. Your loyalty becomes her cushion. Your stability becomes her fresh air. Your consistency becomes the environment she uses to heal, but not a place she necessarily intends to remain. She absorbs your steadiness, but she never matches it. She enjoys the quiet peace you provide, yet she doesn't know how to build a life inside it. And this is where good men make the same painful mistake again and again. You confuse being gentle with being grounded. You assume that being agreeable is the same as being strong. You think avoiding conflict is what emotional maturity looks like, but that's not how it works. And when she realizes she can depend on your emotional strength without ever rising to meet you there, she stops seeing you as her equal. You slowly become a sanctuary she enters, not a partner she chooses. You didn't lose her because you weren't enough. You lost her because she was never prepared to receive the kind of man you were becoming. Now let's get into the first psychological reason women like her cheat on men like you. She felt loved but not desired. And this is the part that cuts good men the deepest, because you truly believed you were giving her everything. You offered love. You offered reassurance. You made her feel protected, valued, emotionally cared for. You would never play games, never make her doubt her place in your world. In your mind, that commitment should have been all she ever needed. But here's a truth most men never hear. A woman can feel deeply loved and still feel completely unwanted. She can feel emotionally supported, yet feel unseen as a woman. And when a woman starts feeling invisible, that feeling doesn't explode. It erodes, quietly, slowly, long before you hear the first complaint. Love and desire don't live in the same room. Love tells her she matters. Desire tells her she's chosen. Love creates comfort. Desire creates spark. And when that spark fades, when she doesn't feel claimed or pursued or seen as feminine energy in your world, a quiet starvation begins. Good men unintentionally smother the tension that fuels desire, not because they're soft, but because they want so badly to avoid causing pain. You remove the edges, the polarity, the little moments of assertiveness that once made her feel alive in your presence. You become incredibly predictable, endlessly available, gentle to the point where nothing ever creates friction. And what you don't realize is that friction is oxygen for attraction. This is when her language begins to twist. She doesn't say, "I don't feel desired." Most women don't have that vocabulary. Instead, she begins saying things that sound confusing to you. "You don't love me. You've changed. I don't feel close to you." What she truly means is, "I don't feel wanted. I don't feel like your woman. I miss feeling chosen. But she can't articulate that, so she blames the only word she knows how to use: love. And then someone else appears. Not a better man, not a more attractive man, not someone who can compete with everything you bring, just a man who gives her the one feeling she's been starving for, someone who makes her feel seen again. It might come from a look, a joke, a compliment, a moment of attention she hasn't felt from you in months. He awakens a part of her she thought she'd lost: her femininity, her sense of magnetism, her feeling of being a woman instead of just a partner. The cheating never begins with the physical. It begins with the drift. Emotional distance first, detachment next, and then the reach for validation she's been craving. By the time her body betrays you, the relationship has already been quietly bleeding out for months. And that slow, unseen bleeding leads directly into a truth most men never recognize until it's far too late. Women don't cheat because your love was missing. They cheat because your desire was. But that's only one side of the story, and the next part of it digs into something even more confusing. Because not every betrayal grows from feeling unseen. Some women cheat because chaos feels like home to them, and that's where the second reason begins to take shape: slipping out from the shadows of her past. She's addicted to emotional drama. Not every woman strays because she feels invisible. Some do it because peace feels foreign, almost uncomfortable. And this woman is harder to notice because on the surface, she appears vibrant, expressive, affectionate, maybe even deeply attached. But if you look beneath that intensity, you'll find a nervous system conditioned not for harmony, but for turmoil, the kind of turmoil that makes chaos feel like passion and peace feel like a threat. If you don't understand that difference, you'll end up blaming yourself for failing her when the truth is much simpler. You weren't her chaos. You weren't her emotional drug. Women who grow up in unstable emotional environments learn the wrong definition of love. To them, love isn't consistent. It's unpredictable. Love isn't steady. It's loud, explosive, volatile. Love isn't calm. It's a roller coaster that drags them from one emotional extreme to the next. If her childhood or past relationships were filled with shouting, manipulation, sudden breakups, and constant emotional whiplash, her brain begins to equate instability with connection. Her nervous system becomes hooked on the adrenaline rush that comes with chaos, and anything quieter feels empty. So when she meets you, the stable man, the emotionally grounded man, the man who communicates with clarity instead of confusion, her system doesn't know what to do with you. You give her predictability, affection, reliability. You speak calmly, you listen, you show up in the same emotional tone day after day. And instead of interpreting that as safety, she interprets it as lack of passion. She feels the absence of chaos and assumes it means there's no connection. To her, calm doesn't feel warm. It feels cold. It feels flat. It feels wrong. And that's where the chaotic man slips back in. Not a better man, not a man who can compete with your character or your loyalty, just a man whose emotional inconsistency feels familiar. He gives attention one day, disappears the next, pulls her close, pushes her away, keeps her off balance. He triggers the chemical highs and lows her nervous system is addicted to. The same instability that would repel a healed woman draws her in like gravity. She confuses her own anxiety with desire, and she calls the adrenaline chemistry. Her cheating, again, doesn't begin in the physical. It begins in conversations, quiet ones, secret ones, ones she justifies as harmless. She reconnects with an ex just to check in. She opens up to a coworker who really gets her. She stays up late chatting with someone new because it's just talking. These emotional risks are the hits she's been missing, the spikes your steadiness can't provide. And here's the bitter truth: you weren't dull, you were healthy, you weren't lacking spark. She was lacking healing, but she confuses calmness for emptiness and chaos for fire. She mistakes emotional intensity for intimacy. She thinks the spike means the connection is real, when in reality it's just familiar pain wearing a different face. This isn't a woman you can fix. You can't outlove trauma she refuses to confront. You can't compete with the chaos her brain still calls home. Your peace is not the problem. Her conditioning is. And sometimes that conditioning runs even deeper than chaos. It's rooted in wounds she never healed, which brings us to the next reason, one that pierces even deeper than the rest. She never healed from her past. Not every woman cheats because of something you did or failed to do. Some cheat because they stepped into the relationship carrying invisible wounds, unspoken trauma, and patterns they never challenged. And the hardest thing for a good man to accept is that she never arrived ready to truly love. She arrived looking for a place to hide. Women who are still hurting gravitate toward the safest man they can find, the man who listens carefully, supports consistently, reassures sincerely, and offers emotional steadiness. With you, she feels relief. She feels like she can finally exhale. She tells you she's never felt this protected, never felt so grounded, never felt so understood. You hear those words and believe you're building something lasting. But what you're building isn't her forever, it's her shelter. You weren't her destination. You were her recovery room. She chose you not because she was ready for deep intimacy, but because she needed a gentle place to escape the emotional wreckage of her past. But escaping the past isn't the same as healing it. She hasn't done the internal work. She's simply hiding inside your stability, leaning on your emotional strength like a cast supporting a broken limb. And slowly, as the pain dulls and her confidence returns, she begins to feel restless, not because you changed, but because your presence reminds her of the version of herself she was trying to escape. That's when the self-sabotage begins. The quiet whisper telling her she doesn't deserve you. The fear that you're too good, too steady, too real. The belief that something this safe can't possibly last. Instead of naming those fears, she runs from them. The moment she feels strong enough, she distances herself from the person who saw her most exposed. She can't bear being reminded of her brokenness, so she reaches for someone new, someone who doesn't know her past wounds, someone who doesn't reflect her vulnerability back at her. Not because he's better, not because he offers more, but because being with him allows her to forget the woman she was when she found you. You weren't the man she betrayed. You were the man she hid inside while she tried to become whole again, unaware she was still bleeding. And that truth carries you directly into the cruelest part of all. She may even feel grateful to you as she walks away, but gratitude isn't loyalty. Safety isn't commitment. And healing, real healing, isn't something you can carry out on her behalf. And as painful as that is to accept, it leads us into the final psychological trigger, the one that destroys attraction faster than anything else, the silent shift good men never notice until everything is already unraveling. She felt like your emotional parent, not your partner. There is a specific moment in a relationship when a woman stops standing beside a man and starts feeling like she's standing above him, guiding him, teaching him, managing him, and that shift, once it settles in, suffocates attraction faster than all the others combined. What makes it so dangerous is that it doesn't show up loudly. It arrives quietly, almost sweetly. She begins as the supportive woman, the one who listens to you, helps you open up, encourages you to process your emotions. At first, it makes her feel valued, important, even essential to your growth. But slowly, without warning, the dynamic begins to tilt, and she stops feeling like you're equal. She starts feeling like she's raising you. And once that happens, everything begins to deteriorate piece by piece. Women are naturally nurturing, yes, but they are not built to become a man's emotional parent. They can comfort you, they can lift you, they can support you, but they cannot carry both their emotions and yours on their shoulders. When she feels like she has to regulate your moods, initiate every difficult conversation, or constantly guide you through how to express yourself, she no longer feels connected to you. She feels responsible for you, and responsibility is the death of attraction. Good men often slip into this dynamic without realizing it. You avoid conflict because you don't want to upset her. You apologize immediately, not because you understand, but because you want to restore peace. You shut down during hard conversations hoping silence will smooth things over. You expect her emotional intelligence to lead the way while you follow, and you tell yourself you're being considerate. But what you're really doing is placing the weight of your emotional world onto her shoulders. Over time, she starts noticing the imbalance. She's the one keeping communication alive. She's the one soothing the tension. She's the one carrying the emotional labor of both partners. And the more she's forced into that position, the less she feels like your woman. You stop being the grounded, self-led man she once admired. You become something she didn't sign up for, a project, something to manage, something to fix, something to maintain. And here is a truth almost no one tells good men. A woman cannot feel romantic attraction toward a man she feels she has to emotionally parent. She may care for you, she may feel affection, empathy, or even love. But desire cannot survive in a dynamic where she feels like the masculine structure has collapsed and now she's responsible for holding everything together. And when she reaches that place, she becomes vulnerable to the presence of another man. Not because she's cruel or calculating, but because the moment she stops seeing you as a man, she'll notice any man who carries the emotional grounding she's starving for. She doesn't fall for him. She falls for the contrast. When she becomes your emotional parent, you stop being her partner. But that doesn't mean you're powerless. It means you must recognize the early signs long before the dynamic reaches its breaking point. Every man who's been hurt eventually looks back and realizes the red flags were always there. Not loud, not dramatic. Just small patterns he didn't know how to interpret. Some women show their psychology through their constant hunger for outside validation. The subtle flirting they insist is harmless, the provocative photos, the way they glow more from attention than connection. That type of woman doesn't cheat because you aren't enough. She cheats because she needs desire like oxygen, and when she feels undesired at home, she'll search for it anywhere she can. Others reveal themselves through chaos. They can't tolerate calm. They spark conflict out of nowhere. They describe every ex as crazy without acknowledging their own role in the storm. Their relationships sound like battlefields, not partnerships. When stillness feels suffocating to a woman, she'll chase the man who disrupts her peace, not the one who offers it. Then there's the unhealed woman, the one who leaps from heartbreak straight into your arms, calling you her safe place before you even know each other. She attaches quickly, praises you endlessly, leans on your steadiness. But she's not bonding with you. She's escaping from herself. And if she never does the inner work, she'll walk away the moment she regains her strength, leaving you wondering how someone who clung so tightly could disappear so easily. And finally, the woman who slowly begins carrying your emotional weight. You see it in the way she exhales deeply before initiating yet another serious talk. You feel it in the way she describes being lonely, even when you're sitting right there. When she has to hold the emotional structure for both of you, she's already slipping out the door in her mind. But knowing these patterns isn't enough. You need to learn how to protect your heart without shutting it down. You need an emotional backbone strong enough to face conflict instead of avoiding it, boundaries firm enough to maintain respect without becoming rigid. And it begins with clarity. No secret conversations with male friends, no hidden emotional ties to exes, no blurred lines she can later claim were harmless. Because if you want to break the cycles that led you here, you have to become the man who sees the signs long before the heartbreak begins. Because once you start seeing those signs, you stop entertaining situations that blur your judgment or force you to negotiate your self-respect. No gray areas. You're not her therapist, you're not her distraction, and you're not the place she runs to when she wants to avoid herself. You're a man, and that means you have the right, no, the responsibility, to choose the emotional atmosphere you allow yourself to breathe in. You've learned by now that patterns speak louder than promises, that behavior outweighs the prettiest apologies, and that consistency reveals more truth than any emotional outburst ever could. So when a woman shows you repeatedly who she is, you don't wait for the damage to land before you act. You walk away before your heart becomes collateral in a battle that was never yours to fight. Because if you don't know how to guard your own heart, being a good man doesn't protect you, it exposes you. And here's the reality: most men only understand after the storm has already taken everything from them. Her cheating was never a measure of your worth. It was a mirror reflecting her psychology, her wounds, her unresolved chaos, her unmet needs, her confusion about herself, not about you. Whether she felt invisible in her own life, addicted to emotional turbulence, weighed down by a past she never healed, or suffocated by a role she never truly chose, every explanation circles back to a single truth. Her betrayal originated within her, not from some missing piece inside you. Some women cheat because they lose the feeling of being desired even when they are deeply loved. Others because disorder feels more familiar than peace ever has. Some because your stability was a place to recover temporarily, not a place they ever intended to build a life. And others because they felt more like caretakers than partners, burdened by the belief that they had to raise a man instead of stand beside one. Four different roads, one painful landing, your self-blame for wounds that never belonged to you. But now you're here, sharpened by experience, awake in ways you weren't before, and this is where the shift begins. You don't turn cold, you turn clear. You don't become bitter, you become discerning. You don't close your heart. You learn to protect it without dimming its capacity to love. You remain kind, but you let go of naivety. You stay open, but only to women who bring the same emotional integrity you offer without hesitation. You stay a good man, but you evolve into a strong one who understands that the future isn't shaped by avoiding pain, but by recognizing early patterns, trusting your instincts, and walking away from situations that drain your spirit before they shatter it. You don't rescue anyone from chaos they choose to keep. You don't fix hearts that refuse to heal. You don't carry emotional weight that was never yours. You defend your energy the same way you protect anything sacred, with clear boundaries, sharp self-respect, and an unwavering understanding of your own value. Because the next woman you allow into your life doesn't just deserve your love, she deserves the man you're becoming, the man who sees with clarity, the man who chooses with wisdom, the man who knows his worth so deeply that betrayal no longer has the power to rewrite it. If this reached you in a way you didn't expect, stay close. Like and share this with another man who needs this reminder. And tell me in the comments which line struck you the hardest. Your voice might be the one that helps another man finally open his eyes.